So, a solid education has been the traditional way of ensuring that that occurs. And so, well, that's what we hope we can offer with Peterson Academy. That's the purpose of my books as well, to elucidate that. And so, can the universities do that? I don't think so.
I don't know if they have that philosophy. The philosophy and the way you're laying it out resonates with me. I think it's accurate. I think it when I'm in harmony in my life, that it all seems to make sense. It all works together. Mm-hmm. What you're saying, it just rings true. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're so infected with this ideology that flies in the face. They've
rejected it wholeheartedly.
Yes.
Look, the premise of the postmodernists is that there's no uniting meta-narrative. If you had to define postmodernism in one phrase, that would be it. And so what have they done? Here's the association with Marxism. Okay, so the Marxists have a counter-narrative. It's the narrative of power. And it is a very powerful counter-narrative, because if you don't put the proper uniting principle at the pinnacle, mm-hmm. its power emerges immediately, because people play power games, and right. you can attain a certain degree of success and a fair amount of domination by playing a power game. And so Marx observed that one of the cardinal power games is economic. And it is probably the cardinal power game, right? There's economic disparity. Those at the top do take advantage of their position at the top to stabilize their position. Like, in a functional society, productive people are at the top, but even among those at the top, there's still power-seeking crooks. Mm-hmm. And so now Marx, of course, would say that, well, everyone who's economically successful is a power-seeking crook. And, you know, that's a great thing to believe if you're a resentful Satanist like Marx.
Well,
and
it's how the losers look at the world.
Well, that's for sure. But there is some justification in it, because among the successful there are...
Yes.
Right, okay.
And a large percentage, because that's the culture in which they're existing.
Yeah, well, a dangerous percentage.
Yes.
And a critique of power is always a valid critique. Okay, so what the postmodernists did when Marxism became ethically unacceptable, and that happened in the 1970s, is they metastasized it. They said, okay, we've got a victim-victimizer narrative that's played out in the economic sphere, and that's basically Marxism. We'll just multiply that until the same interpretive framework can be applied to all possible group distinctions. That's basically intersectionality. So sex is a oppressor versus oppressed narrative. Gender is an oppressed versus oppressor narrative. Ethnicity, race, ability, attractiveness, height. Any qualitative distinction is now recast as a battle between oppressor and oppressed. It's an unbelievably brutal story. It's basically equivalent to the claim that the spirit of power is the ruler of the cosmos.
How can they do all this and ignore the possibility of an oppressor, like a male, adopting the identity of the oppressed, of a female, and entering into female spaces and oppressing females?
You can see that it can't be dealt with, because...
Wild, right? That is wild.
Look, one of the things you see that's very characteristic of the utopian left is the absolute insistence that anyone oppressed is a victim. It's like, okay, we'll give the devil his due. Some oppressed people are victims, but some people who claim to be oppressed aren't victims. They're the worst kind of monsters that the most deranged imagination could barely conceptualize. Utopian, naive, radical progressives refuse their imagination for evil. And that delivers them into the hands of the absolute bloody psychopaths. Right? And they just don't see it. It's like, oh, those trans people, they're just striving to be free. It's like, you wait until you have one of them in your house, buddy, and you're going to find out just exactly how naive you are. So how do they protect themselves? They just deny the existence of malevolence or attribute it to socioeconomic inequality.
Right.
All criminals are victims.
Right.
It's like, no, first of all, lots of people who are victims aren't criminals. In fact, poverty does not cause criminality. That's a lie. And it's a very damaging lie to the poor, Because
Right.
if poverty was equivalent to criminality, the logical thing to do is just to lock up all the poor.
Right.
Right. Well, there are many pathways from poverty forward, and one of them is criminality, but you can say the same thing about wealth. So the idea, and that's basically a Marxist theory of causality, it's like, well, those people's oppression is what's causing their lack of law-abiding what conduct. It's like, no, wrong, seriously wrong, and dangerously wrong, and ridiculously naive. That's not how the world works at all.
Right. You're also, in a sense, you're encouraging this kind of behavior because you're not punishing people for it, because you're saying it's not their fault.
Or you're even
And so-
valorizing it. Oh, you poor
Yes.
thing.
Right. And you're
Right.
allowing more of it to take place.
Well, we know that. So the dark tetrad types, so those are the subclinical psychopaths.